Good evening. Olentangy Schools is looking forward to opening our 16th elementary school in August 2021. Having another great new elementary school in our district brings the need to adjust attendance boundaries to fill that school. Continued rapid growth across Olentangy has also created the need for attendance boundaries to be adjusted across several elementary buildings and middle schools. As superintendent, I am charged with two major responsibilities: to assign staff and assign students to buildings. As such, the Superintendent's Committee has been formed, comprised of 14 community members who have spent the past 3 months examining our current attendance boundaries, feeder patterns, and enrollment projections. This committee also works closely with our partner, Cooperative Strategies, who provides our enrollment projections, creates planning units, and GIS mapping tools. The committee has developed several options, which will be presented to you momentarily for your feedback. This Superintendent's Committee will review all feedback and ultimately provide a recommendation to me to make a final decision on new attendance boundaries. My decision will be shared at the Thursday, March 25th Board of Education meeting. Overall, I anticipate a relatively small number of students to be moved during this year's redistricting efforts. And as we look ahead to the opening of middle school 6 and elementary 17 in the next 2 to 3 years, a need will be created to have a much more extensive redistricting plan. One of the great things about living and attending school in our district is that everyone loves the school they now attend. Our building cultures are outstanding, and no one wants to leave to attend another school. This makes decisions like this incredibly difficult because I know I'm moving students and not numbers. I encourage you to look at the bigger picture of balancing enrollment, easing overcrowding, and opening a new building. I know this will be hard for those impacted. I understand and empathize. However, I am confident that for anyone moving to a new school or to the new elementary school, that a great experience awaits them. Now I'd like to turn it over to Scott Leopold from Cooperative Strategies to provide an overview of the 10 options for your feedback. Please take time after viewing this presentation to complete the feedback surveys. If after viewing this presentation you have unanswered questions, please feel free to sign up for a designated question and answer session on Saturday, February 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Scott Leopold with Cooperative Strategies, and I will be providing an overview of the redistricting process and will present a series of options to collect your feedback. As a reminder, at this point, no decisions have been made, and these options are being presented to generate feedback and conversation. This graphic outlines the overall process. As you can see, we began by establishing an advisory committee, which was charged with keeping an objective view and considering the needs of all students. This committee is composed of parent volunteers, and district staff members participated as a resource. The committee reviewed the redistricting guidelines from the board, the overall process, and the underlying data such as enrollment and capacity. The committee then worked to develop a series of options, which you will see in this presentation. Now we are at the point where we're ready to collect feedback. This will include both an interactive online survey as well as opportunities for virtual live Q&A sessions with the staff, consultants, and the committee members. The committee will review all feedback from the community and develop a recommendation to the superintendent. These are the redistricting guidelines that we used for this process. The resolution can be found in its entirety on the district website. The major points are that each building should be optimally utilized. Once determined and after consideration of projected enrollment, attendance boundaries should remain intact as much as possible. Safety, convenience, and efficiency of transportation as well as student travel times should be considered in assigning students to buildings. And also alignment of elementary, middle, and high school attendance areas should be a factor in establishing attendance areas as much as possible. We spent a lot of time talking about the second bullet point. This is particularly relevant because, as you know, we're opening a new elementary school this fall, in the fall of 2021. But in the next 2 to 3 years, we have an additional middle school and possibly an additional elementary school coming online as well. So the committee had to consider boundary change implications over time, knowing that some of them may be temporary. This slide just shows our history of facilities and when they opened up, and you can just see that, as we all know, Olentangy is a fast-growing district, and we opened a lot of schools over the last 30 years. This slide shows us our current boundaries and associated data. The data points that we worked with quite a bit or capacity, and this is the number of students that a facility can hold. And we have accounted for dedicated pre-K spaces in each building and are not including that in our capacity number. And so here you can see our capacity numbers in the chart. Our next figure that we're looking at is enrollment. This is the number of students in each building. Again, we have queried out the pre-K students so that we're only looking at the students that correlate to the capacity that we're looking at. These numbers are based on the 2020-21 student enrollment information, and the committee took into account fluctuations due to the pandemic as well as future growth. And so this shows us our enrollment for each school based on the current boundaries. And this does include live-in enrollment, so it does not include transfers between buildings. And finally, utilization shown over here. This is simply enrollment divided by capacity, which gives us that percentage. And so you can see on average, if we include the capacity from the new elementary school, we're at 90% utilization. And so we do show the need for that building. Overall, with that new school coming online, we're at 90%. Looking at the map over here, you can see we've got some overutilization currently at Cheshire and Johnny Cake Elementary Schools, as well as Heritage and Olentangy Meadows. We've got a little bit of underutilization at Alum Creek Elementary. If we look over to the western portion of the district, you can see that we're pretty good as far as overall utilization. We see a lot of the schools in the green. If we look at middle schools, we see a little overutilization at both Orange Middle School and Berkshire Middle School. Berkshire Middle School is more of a focus because there's more growth pointed at Berkshire. Changes to Orange, that's something that we could perhaps revisit in a future process when we're talking about the next middle school coming online as well. When we look at the high school utilization over here, just keep in mind we're using that 1,800 number as the capacity. Right now, we're in pretty decent shape as far as utilization goes at the high school level, but we may look at balancing that utilization over the next 2 to 3 years when we again look at boundaries associated with the opening of the new middle school 6. Now, before we go into the options, I just want to reiterate the goals for this process. We're establishing a boundary for the next elementary school, which will open in the fall of 2021. We're always considering the guidelines from the board. The options that we're looking at are intended to foster conversation and discussion among community members. We need to remember that we're always thinking about the future growth and its impacts on enrollment, capacity, and utilization. As you've probably noticed already, we have split the options into really 3 different categories. We're looking at the North Elementary options, which include Cheshire, Johnny Cake Corners, Heritage, Arrowhead, and the new elementary school. We're treating them separate from the South options, which include Alum Creek, Freedom Trail, Glen Oak, Oak Creek, Olentangy Meadows, and Walnut Creek, because they're pretty much independent as far as those changes go. Any of the North options that we're showing will work with any of the South options that we're showing, and we just thought it was simpler to break those 2 up. We're not looking at any changes to the boundaries for elementary schools on the western side of the district, west of Olentangy River /315. Middle school concepts are only for the northern region, looking at Shanahan, Hyatts, and Berkshire. We don't have any middle school changes proposed for the southern region of the district. Finally, I just want to reiterate one more time before we go into the options that at this point, no decisions have been made. There's no priority of options. There's no preferred option. The order in which they're presented does not matter. These options are truly intended to just foster conversation and feedback from the community. This is North Option 1. You've noticed we don't show the feeder pattern on here because the middle school changes that we're talking about have an impact on that. And so we'll kind of address that as we talk through those middle school concepts. But our highlights here, the area west of Glen Parkway, which is currently in Cheshire, would move to Elementary 16. And we'll show the changes on the next slide so you can get a better look at them. Olentangy Falls and Olentangy Crossing would move to Arrowhead. The northeast corner of the district, with around 36-37, which is currently in Johnny Cake, would move to Cheshire to backfill those students that went to the new elementary school. This option reduces enrollment at the currently overutilized Johnny Cake Corners from 111%, Cheshire down from 114%, and Heritage at 107. And so you can see Johnny Cake is down to 103%. Cheshire 73, and Heritage 79%. So looking at this, you can get an idea of the magnitude of change that we're talking about. And so this green area shows the area that would be assigned to the new elementary school. You can see we've got some other little changes here that we would move students into Arrowhead. Here's that Olentangy Falls, Olentangy Crossing piece, the area that is on the north side of Shanahan Road. Worthington Arms would stay at Arrowhead where it is assigned today. And so you can just see how these all look. The benefits, room for growth in the northern part of the district, fairly balanced utilizations with the exception of Johnny Cake Corners. Our challenges here, Johnny Cake is overutilized. It's projected to decrease enrollment over the next few years because we've really taken a lot of that growth area in Johnny Cake and pointed it towards Cheshire. Here's our north option 2, the area west of Brawmiller this time, not all the way to Glen Parkway. Olentangy Falls and Olentangy Crossing and Worthington Arms would all move into the new elementary school. We have that same change for that northeast corner. And then the Old State corridor that goes all the way up to 36 would actually come out of Cheshire and go into Arrowhead. This reduces enrollment at the currently overutilized Johnny Cake, Cheshire, and Heritage. Johnny Cake going from 111 down to 103, Cheshire from 114 down to 91, and Heritage from 107 down to 80%. Now I'll move on to the next slide. You can see those changes. And so again, the area that we would have assigned to the new elementary school is in this green cross-hatched area. Some minor changes over here. Those homes that are on the north side of Shanahan Road would go to Arrowhead. That whole Old State corridor would also go to Arrowhead. And then we have those changes along 36, 37 going from Johnny Cake to Cheshire. Looking at the benefits, great room for growth in the northern part of the district. Johnny Cake, one of the challenges, Johnny Cake is overutilized, but is projected to decrease over the next few years because since we took a lot of that growth area out and pointed it at Cheshire. So here's our north option 3. This is the third one that we have here. Our highlights are the area west of Glen Parkway. So this is back similar to what we had in option 1. Moves to the new elementary school along with Worthington Arms. Olentangy Falls, Olentangy Crossing stay at Heritage in this option. Heritage is nearly unchanged other than some of the growth areas that we took off and pointed at Arrowhead. This moves a total of 689 students. Looking at the numbers here, elementary 16, 91%, Arrowhead 57, Cheshire 73, Heritage would remain high at 107%, Johnny Cake at 103. Here's the detail for our north option 3. You can see the green crosshatch shows the proposed boundary for elementary 16. You can also see some other changes that we have here. Again, as I said in the earlier slides, Heritage is relatively unchanged except for some of this growth area that's in its northeast corner would move to Arrowhead. We have a little area out of here that would come from Cheshire to Arrowhead, kind of that Old State corridor piece. And then again, that growth area from Johnny Cake to Cheshire. So benefits, room for growth in the northern part of the district. Challenges, we continue to have that little overutilization at Johnny Cake Corners at 103%, but we do look at seeing that come down over time, given that we've taken a lot of that growth area and pointed it towards Cheshire. Some of the growth pointed at Heritage has been moved to Arrowhead, but there is still some growth in there, and it is a little overutilized at 107%. But I think it's something that we could look at in future processes when we're looking at having additional facilities coming online in the next 2 to 3 years. That concludes our options and concepts presentation. Now I'll go into talking about the next steps and collecting your feedback. We'll have this online survey open through Sunday, February 28th. And just as a reminder, this is really about feedback. It's not about voting or anything like that. It's really sharing your comments and feedback so that the committee can consider them as they develop a recommendation. We'll have an opportunity to participate in an online Q&A sessions on Saturday, February 20th. Those will be at noon, where we'll discuss the North Region elementary options, At 1 o'clock, we'll discuss the South Region options. And at 2, we'll look at those middle school concepts. And again, the committee will review your feedback and make a recommendation to the superintendent. There will be a video announcement on this process and the recommendations on March 26th. Thank you for taking the time to go through this with us.